So we now have our first look at the, of course, September developer note, which is going to let us know what we can expect a little bit later this month on the PTB. And we're going to break down all the killer changes, all the perk changes, the arrival, of course, of the final Mori and more. Let's take a look at it right now. Let's kick it off with the good old September developer notice. And here's what we got. Next, update features an especially large number of perk tweaks and reworks on top of our usual killer tweaks and new features. And this post will dig into each of the changes and share our reasoning behind them, starting with the major update, of course, the Finishing Mori. Now, this was on a PTB almost a year ago, and now it's finally seeing the light of day. New, the killer can now perform a Mori on the final survivor without using an offering. Objects obstructing the camera during the Mori animation will fade away, and rework memento Mori offerings have a new effect. Gain a large blood point bonus when performing a Mori on the final survivor. Developer note, when Finishing Mori System was tested previous, many found it was surrounding gameplay changes have too large effect on the match. We have scaled back this system to better suit what players expect from it. Killers now have an option to kill the final survivor if they choose. They will provide some visual flair and create a satisfying ending to the match. Since this change would make memento Mori offerings obsolete, we have reworked them to instead reward the killer a large amount of blood points based on their rarity when a Mori is performed. We have also added the new mechanic which hides nearby objects when a Mori is happening to prevent rocks, crates, etc. from rudely standing in the way so you can enjoy all the glory. We're going to go to survivor perks, starting with teamwork, power of 2. This is a medium-sized update. It looks like Teamwork Collective Stealth is getting one as well. New, this effect will linger for a few seconds when out of range. Re-entering the range before the lingering time expires will maintain its effects. Change, the range is gone up to 8, 12, and 16 meters, was exclusively 12. Removed, Teamwork Power 2 no longer has a cooldown of 180, 160, and 140 seconds. And removed no longer deactivates when either survivor loses a health state. Dev note, this perk grants a speed boost to both survivors after healing as long as they stick together. This alone is pretty conditional, so we have removed the cooldown entirely, removed the added detective clause to simplify the perk, and made it feel better to use. We've also increased the range to simply make it a little easier to maintain. The second teamwork that was updated was Collective Stealth, and this is the new effect. This effect will linger for a few seconds after re-entering the range, so exactly the same as Power 2, and you can re-up it. Change, increase the range to 8, 12, and 16 meters, was 12, just like it was for Power 2, and removed Teamwork Collective Stealth no longer has a cooldown of 180, 160, 140 seconds, and no longer deactivates when losing a health state. So basically the same things they did with Power 2, they did with Collective Stealth. So both your teamwork perks get a pretty solid rework. And now we start hitting the minor updates, and that's going to include corrective action. Change now applies to survivors within 8 meters was cooperating on the same action. Change, prevented failed skill checks now become great skill checks was a good skill check. That's not bad. Corrective action previously only prevented progress lost from other survivors' missed skill checks. This could be great when played with a friend, but not very useful for more experienced players. We have changed the result to a great skill check to provide a marginal progress boost whether the perk activates, giving it some value in higher end matches. Inner focus change, increase aura rating duration to 6, 8, and 10 seconds was 3, 4, and 5. So they pretty much just doubled across the board and removed the range requirement. This perk previously required to be within 32 meters of the survivor who loses a health state, meaning you would often have to know where the killer is anyway. We have removed this condition. This will make inner focus a useful tool in keeping track of the killer's whereabouts regardless of where they are in the map. Interesting. All right, once again, we're back working on We're Gonna Live Forever. This is a medium update change. Increase healing speed bonus to 150% was 100. Dev note, survivors aren't left in dying state often. Really? We're not pretending slugging isn't a big thing. Okay. So we went to make sure this perk is effective situations. Removed. Endurance effect no longer needs to be activated. And new, added a 30-second cooldown to the endurance effect. Dev note, the endurance effect aspect of the perk made the perk overly complicated to make use of. So we have replaced this with a cooldown instead. The cooldown only applies to the endurance effect, not the healing speed increase. Poised. Also getting a medium update. New. When you first start repairing a generator, see the killer's aura for 6 seconds. Change. Increase the duration to 10, 12, and 14 seconds from 6, 8, and 10. This is a double. To make points more appealing, we're introducing a new effect to the addition to the original one. When you first start repairing a generator, you'll see the killer's aura. This will help you keep tabs on where they are throughout the match. We've also increased the duration of the effect. All right. Next up is a major update to Blood Rush. Change. Blood Rush now activates for 40, 50, or 60 seconds after being unhooked. Previously, it activated permanently when you were one hook away from death. New. Blood Rush now deactivates upon performing a conspicuous action. Blood Rush now deactivates when the exit gates are powered and is no longer heals or provides broken status effect. Dev note, this perk had a lot of effects in equally strict set of conditions. We had simplified it to focus on the exhaustion recovery, which tends to be the main appeal for this perk. To allow this effect to happen more often, Blood Rush now activates for a set duration after you were unhooked. Killers will want to be careful not to chase Blood Rush users after they are unhooked, since they will be harder to catch. This effect will be disabled if the survivor performs the conspicuous action or the gates are now powered. Man, we are getting a lot of stuff in this update. Quick Gambit medium update. New. When chased, see the aura of other survivors. New. Quick Gambit now has a 60-second cooldown upon losing a health state. Reduced repair speed bonus to 3, 4, and 5% was 6, 7, and 8. So a little bit of a knock there, half on the tier 1, and then like about 30% on tier 2 and 3, and removed repair speed bonus no longer has a limited range. Quick Gambit previously required survivors to lead the killer towards the generator in order to get any benefit. This was very risky and often resulted in the killer chasing those survivors instead. This perk no longer has a range requirement and now shows the aura of all survivors, so you can do the opposite and keep the killer away from those gen users. To balance this out, Quick Gambit will now go on cooldown upon losing a health state, making more challenge to keep active and productive for the killer as a way to play around it. I really like what they're doing here with Quick Gambit, because Quick Gambit was... how do we want to put it? It was a very double-edged sword. You had to get to a gen range of 32 meters previously to actually, you know, get the chase in there and get them the bonus, but they probably heard the gen and would leave you anyway. So that distortion no longer has tokens and instead deactivates once used until the next time you are chased. Ugh, gross. Change. Increased duration 8, 10, and 12 seconds was 6, 8, and 10. Boo. Distortion counters a lot of perks and add-ons, and the token system and recharge mechanic makes distortion far too effective and allows survivors to go unseen for an entire match. To limit its effectiveness, we have removed the token system and made it so distortion only reactivates upon being chased. We have extended duration slightly to help account for longer aura rating effects to compensate. Well, rip distortion. All the complaining from killers has finally won, and distortion is dead. Lucky Star change now suppresses grunts of pain and pools of blood as long as you are in the locker. This effect lingers for more than 30 seconds after exiting the locker, was 10 seconds when entering. Remove no longer reveals survivors or generators auras. Dev note, Lucky Star's short duration often meant it would wear off before the killer left the area. It will now stay active long as you're in the locker and linger for a set duration after you leave. Genetic Limits is getting a major update. Rework. Anytime a survivor loses a health state, they suffer from exhaustion for 6, 7, and 8 seconds. Genetic Limits previously affected survivors who were healed, which often led to exhaustion effect expiring before they could be chased. It will now apply to survivors who have lose a health state instead, but with a shorter duration. This will provide more constant value though skilled players may be able to outlast the effect. We got a medium update to Leverage. When a survivor performs an unhook, their healing speed is reduced by 30, 40, or 50 per second for 30 seconds. Dev note, Leverage used to gain strength as the match went on. This made Leverage ineffective early on, often becoming effective when the match was nearly won anyway. We have reworked it to be much simpler and provide constant value. Leverage now discourages survivors from healing directly under the hook. Whack! Rework. Thwack now starts with 3 tokens. Gain 1 token upon hooking a survivor. When breaking a pallet or breakable wall, consume 1 token and cause a survivor with 24 meters to scream and reveal their location for 3, 4, or 5 seconds. Thwack used to only activate once per hook, leading it to be often wasted. By introducing tokens, killers can use these for later or potentially use them more in a particular chase. Machine learning change. The most recent damage generator becomes compromised. Machine learning previously required you to damage one generator to activate it, then another compromise it. This made it awkward to use. To simplify this, the most recently damaged generator will always become compromised only one generator at a time. Fair enough. Deathbound removed. Deathbound no longer has a distance required to activate. Deathbound no longer has a duration. Instead, deactivates when the healer is hooked. This perk's range condition made it inconsistent to use. To simplify it and give it a nice boost in strength, we have removed both the range and the requirement duration. The Nation Tactics. Rework. When a survivor is within 6 meters of a dropped pallet within 16 meters of your location, their R is revealed for 6, 8, and 10 seconds. Revealing pallets and windows was much less useful to killers than survivors, since the killer is present every time a pallet is broken. We have reworked this perk to instead reveal survivor auras near drop pallets. This provides some useful information during chases and allow for some interesting mind games. Dead man switch, minor update, now only applies to the first survivor who stops repairing a generator. Increased duration 40, 45, and 50 seconds, which is a straight double. Pretty much. Dead Man Switch was a very powerful effect, can be sometimes get out of hand when combined with other perks. We have changed it to only affect the first survivor who stops repairing it to limit how powerful it can be and increase its duration and compensation. So they have dinged Dead Man's pretty interestingly. Blood Echo. Blood Echo no longer has a cooldown and reduces duration to 20, 25, and 30 seconds. Blood Echo previously had a long cooldown. This felt unnecessary since the requirement of hooking a survivor instead of its activations. This has been removed, allowing the perk to activate more frequently and reducing duration slightly to compensate. Hex crowd control reworked. The last 3, 4, 5 vaults when a survivor rushes vault are blocked by the entity. This lasts until the Hex totem is cleansed. In vault heavy areas, it was possible for survivors to outlast the effects by linking together multiple windows. Going forward, the most recently vaulted windows will be blocked until the hex is cleansed. Predator rework. When the survivor escapes chase, reveal their aura for 6 seconds. This perk then goes on cooldown for 60, 50, 40 seconds. Predator has always caused mixed feelings. Some feel like tighter scratch marks made tracking easier, others find it survivors harder. We have given this new effect, which will be more useful for all. Those struggling to keep track of survivors will find Predator handy for giving them a second chance. Meanwhile, more experienced players may find some of the use by intentionally breaking chase. Interesting. And I think it's interesting they made this Predator update when they killed, of course, Distortion. All right, here come the killer updates. Skull Merchant. Oh boy, I always hate talking about her, but what do? Change. Decrease hindered penalty when scanned by drone to 5% was 10. Removed. The Skull Merchant no longer gains haste when scanning a survivor. These two effects created a huge speed difference between the killer and survivors, and we have removed one and toned the other one down for fairer level. Change. Reduce number of drones scan lines to 1 was 2. Drones are now always in their active state, and drone scan lines are now visible beyond 16 meters. Being unable to see drone scan lines made them very difficult to play around accordingly. Scan lines will now always be visible when nearby and invisible when out of range. Additionally, we have reduced the number of scan lines per drone to allow for more counterplay. So they did ding the merchant pretty good. Billy, change. Decrease time before overdrive starts to dissipate to 8 seconds was 15. Decrease overdrive movement speed to 11.5 milliseconds was 13. Decrease overdrive charges gained while revving and sprinting to 1.5 seconds was 2. And increase chainsaw missed attack cooldown to 2.7 was 2.5. This is a straight Billy nerf. It's been great seeing Billy's rise in popularity. Now that he has some time to settle, we've identified a few aspects of Overdrive mechanic that could use some fine tuning. Overdrive's intended to kick it frequently. It will stay active for a large portion of the match. These changes will make Overdrive mechanic a little less common and provide less speed boost when it's activated. We've also increased the missed attack cooldown slightly to make it a little harder to follow up if a chainsaw is missed with the basic attack. The twins. Increased Victor's cooldown when crushed to 20 seconds was 15, and increased cooldown after Victor downs a survivor to 3.2 seconds was 2.7. Following their update earlier this year, the twins saw a sharp increase in lethality. To keep them check, we have slightly increased how long it takes for Victor to recover after downing a survivor. We have also slightly increased how long it takes Victor to become available again after being killed. And finally, the unknown. New HUD updated to display teleport cooldown and hallucination spawn timer. Change. Movement speed now decreases sooner when charging your power. Increased teleport recovery speed to 15%. Adjustment to blurry photo and vanishing box add-ons just for base kit. Improve visual and audio feedback when using UVX. We tend to revisit killers a few months after they release and see if they need any balance change, and it turns out the unknown is already a pretty good spot, and is well liked by players. So that makes our job pretty easy this time around. Tapping the power button can postpone a hallucination from spawning, but to Survivor, it appears as if you're about to launch a UVX. It forces survivors to constantly dodge and lose distance without slowing down. We have reduced the window before a killer slows down with the changing their power. This will make it harder to tap the power button without slowing down while focusing on chase. We have noticed that blurry photo is a fan favorite, so we have incorporated part of its effect into base kit and toned down its compensation. This will allow for more freedom to experiment with other add-ons without missing out. We have also toned down the vanishing box add-on, which was on the stronger side, by adding a trade-off increase to hallucination spawn time. Lastly, we improved VX and its sound effects by using UVX, that's a lot of X's, that doesn't affect balance, but makes it clear to the newer unknown players that hitting survivors with the blast is how you apply weaken to deal damage, not with airborne hits. There is the developer update. This is what we're going to expect coming soon on the PTB. A lot of perk changes, some killer changes, and then of course the Finishing Mori is finally getting rolled out. I like some, I dislike others. I absolutely hate the changes to distortion. As a distortion user myself, I love distortion when I'm playing Survivor, and I don't mind it when I'm playing Killer. But this is a big death to the distortion. They've reworked a lot of stuff. Some stuff is going to be a lot more fun. I think Predator rework is really good. It makes it a viable perk now. I like the adjustments to unknown. So for the most part, I don't think it's a bad update, but we'll see what actually makes the live server when the mid chapter drops next month. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching, and later, mates.